looking for you. Scooby Doo, where are you? All the stars are here, waiting for you. Couldn't have a show without you. Scooby, Scooby-Doo, Scooby, Scooby-Doo.
Hello, Scooby Doo fans! Welcome to my Season 1 Episode 8 review of the new Scooby Doo movies. Last time I continued my 2024 summer special with the release of my Season 1 Episode 3 re-review of Scooby Doo Who Are You, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. But of course today I will be covering Season 1 Episode 8 of the new Scooby Doo movies, titled The Secret of Shark Island, which was released on October 28th, 1972. The short synopsis of the episode is, while on their honeymoon, Sonny and Cher meet up with the gang at a rundown beach resort that is not what they expected. Along with the bad accommodation, there is a giant monster shark lurking around the resort grounds. Today's guest stars are Sonny and Cher. Now, who are Sonny and Cher? Well, I'm sure most of you probably know who Sonny and Cher are, as they're a famous musician couple from back in the day. And they've had, and I'm sure if you're a diehard music fan and you love listening to music, all kinds of music, you're probably familiar with Sonny and Cher, at least in any respect, whether you're a huge music buff or a classical music buff, or you just were around in that time or not. Plus, Cher's been, kind of getting a resurgence as time has been going along. But for those who don't know who Sonny and Cher are, here's just a quick rundown of who the couple are. So Sonny and Cher were an American pop and entertainment duo that were pretty big in the 1960s, specifically the mid to late 1960s, and the early to mid 1970s. Sonny Bono was born on February 16th, 1935 in Detroit, Michigan, and his wife Cher was born on May 20th, 1946 in El Centro, California. So they began their music career in 1964 under the Vault and Reprise record labels with songs such as The Letter, Do You Want to Dance, Love is Strange, and Baby Don't Go. But in 1965, they made their breakthrough with the record label Atco/Atlantic with the song I Got You Babe, which was released on their first album, which was titled Look at Us. In 1967, their third album, In Case You're in Love, had two hit singles called The Beat Goes On and The Little Man. And in 1972, they released their fourth album under the MCA/Cap record label, titled All I Ever Need Is You, which had two singles, which was All I Ever Need Is You and A Cowboy's Work Is Never Done. Now, besides music, Sonny and Cher do have some filmography, both together and individually. However, for the purposes of right now, I'm just going to go over the more relevant stuff. Them as a duo, a little bit, especially during the time frame that this episode was released in. So, they began their filmography in 1965 and 1967 with two movies. One was called Wild on the Beach, another was called Good Times, but they weren't really successful, so they never really took off with film-wise. However, television-wise, Sonny and Cher actually had a lot of successful TV shows, and they did pretty well on the small screen for themselves. So, in TV, they first played as a couple called Jerry and Ramona as a cameo in the third season episode, The Hot Number Affair, which was part of the Man from U.N.C.L.E. show. In 1970, they played themselves in a TV special called The Sonny and Cher Nitty Gritty Comedy Hour. In 1971 to 1974, they played themselves for 3 successful seasons of their own show called The Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour, which is a show you've heard me refer a lot of since Sandy Duncan and I think Don Knotts and others were on that show at one point or another. I think even Jonathan Winters might have been on there too. But I mentioned that show a lot, and yeah, that was one of their most successful shows. In 1974, Sonny played himself for one season on his own show called The Sonny Comedy Review. In 1975 to 1976, Cher played herself for 2 seasons on her own show as well, called The Cher Show. In 1976 to 1977, the couple rejoined and played themselves for 2 seasons of The Sonny and Cher Show. And in 1998, Cher played herself in the TV special Sonny and Me, Cher Remembers. The couple had a child named Chastity, who was born on March 4th, 1969. And Sonny and Cher publicly divorced in June of 1975. And after their divorce, Sonny and Cher went in completely different directions. Sonny pursued politics. He did a little bit of trying to do some entertainment stuff, but he started to pursue politics. And Cher stayed in the entertainment business, pursuing her own solo music and an acting career. So Sonny became a member of the U.S. House of Representatives from 1995 to 1998, and he served as the 16th mayor of Palm Springs, California from 1988 to 1992. At the time of this episode, Sonny and Cher were pretty high in their careers, actually. They not only had just released their 4th album, All I Ever Need Is You, but they also had their hit TV show, The Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour, so they were doing pretty well for themselves in 1972 when this episode aired. Sadly, at the time of recording this, Sonny Bono has since passed away. He passed away on January 5th, 1998 in a skiing accident, and he died from injuries resulting in that skiing accident at Heavenly Ski Resort in Lake Tahoe. However, Cher is still alive to this day, and I think she's in her late 70s at this point. Cher is the only other guest star on the new Scooby Doo movies besides Sandy Duncan. If you remember, I said there was 2 guest stars that are still alive today. Sandy Duncan was one, and Cher is the other. Cher is the only other guest star besides Sandy Duncan to still be alive to this day. And she's currently 78 years old. Now, what's my experience with Sonny and Cher? I'm personally not a fan of Sonny and Cher. I've heard of them before, obviously, just in the last couple of episodes, their show has been name dropped. And I've heard, and Cher's been doing a lot of stuff recently for herself, so I've obviously heard of her and Sonny as well. But I'm not a huge fan of them, and I'm also not a huge music buff. I don't love listening to every kind of music, so especially not classic music. I don't listen too much of that. So Sonny and Cher are probably one of the few guest stars that I honestly just have no attachment or connection to. I'm personally not huge fans of them. I've never really seen any of their movies or their TV shows or their music. So I do want to ask you guys though, what's your experience with Sonny and Cher? You big fans of them? Not really? And what do you think of their guest appearance on the new Scooby Doo movies? And obviously Cher will be reappearing in Scooby Doo and Guess Who. So that's going to be interesting, and this could be like an interesting double feature. Do you like Sonny and Cher's guest stars? Do you think it was a good fit, or do you think not so much? Now, as per usual, I'll be watching Season 1, Episode 8 of the new Scooby Doo movies on the new Scooby Doo Movies, the Almost Complete Collection. This DVD has all the stuff you want, all the good special features, and as every episode, except for the Addams Family episode, if you want to know more about that, I go more in depth on my episode 3 review of Season 1, so go check that out. But as far as how this episode is received, I believe most fans do like this episode. I've heard some good praise for it, at least a little bit of it. Not many people dive deep into the new Scooby Doo movies, but I think I've heard positive thoughts on this episode, and considering Sonny and Cher are a big duo, especially back then, and if you're a music buff, you probably love this, and a lot of people know who they are, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a well-regarded episode. However, let's take a look at the episode to see whether I think it is a good or bad episode of the new Scooby Doo movies. The episode begins with the gang heading off on a surfing trip. Unfortunately, as they were near the beach, a thunderstorm put a damper on their plans. They do, however, spot Sonny and Cher broken down with a flat tire on the side of the road. Sonny and Cher have plans to visit the Hideaway Hotel beach resort for their second honeymoon, so the gang offer to drive them there. On the way in, the gang are spied upon by a mysterious figure in a raincoat who makes some bizarre demonic grunt noises into a walkie-talkie. It's very creepy. The mystery machine is also nearly driven off the road from a rapid trash removal truck, and this causes suspicion for the gang because the gang are wondering, like, why would this trash, no hotel would need to get rid of trash that fast. Freddy and Sonny find this truck suspicious as he was driving like a road hog, and the fact that nobody would ever need to have their trash removed fast. At the beach resort, the gang noticed that its glory years are far from over, as the championship golf course is a field of weeds, the porch is dilapidated, the tennis courts went into the ocean due to a rock slide, and vultures have made a nest on the roof. To make matters worse, later on in the episode, the day after they spent the night at the hotel, the gang is stranded on the island resort for a couple nights due to the tide flooding the bridge. Inside, they meet the hotel manager, Milo Meekley, who is slightly deaf and blind, and we get a funny scene of Cher, Sonny and Cher trying to, like, get his attention. Sonny's, like, thinking this guy's gonna know them, kind of hyping them up, and he's not listening, and it's kind of funny a little bit, and then Cher finally rings the bell, and that gets his attention. The confused Milo thinks the gang are Sonny and Cher's kids, and he also thinks Scooby and Shaggy are twins. I think at one point, the Milo Meekley makes a reference to Basil Rathbone, who played Sherlock Holmes in the 30s and 40s, which I thought was a really cool, like, little nod right there. A nice little neat reference. They also meet Matilda the maid with her manly figure and manly type of face being rather imposing to the gang and Sonny and Cher. We also learn that Sonny's agent recommended the hotel to him as his agent stayed there 15 years ago, but Milo explains to Sonny that ownership of the place has changed hands at least 6 times since then. The good news is that the bridal suite is still available and has a nice view of the rocks in the ocean due to the porch falling off. As Milo shows the gang and Sonny and Cher all to their rooms, he also informs them about an ancient Native American curse of Pescado Diabolical, which Velma says translates to Fish of the Devil, or Milo also says, the evil god of sharks. The curse is that one night, when the sea winds moan, the shark god will walk upon the land and all the sharks will follow, driving humankind back into the ocean. As if on cue, while Milo is recounting this curse, the gang hears a strange moaning, but Milo kind of writes it off as their youthful imagination, and probably because of his bad hearing. During the evening, Daphne sees something come out of the ocean during a lightning storm. Velma kind of teases her a little bit, and she thinks Daphne is just spooked out from the stories Milo told them earlier. But Velma humors her, and so she waits until the next flash of lightning, and she ends up seeing the shark god as well. As mentioned previously, the next morning, the gang do find out that they can't go back to the land, and they can't leave the hotel, and they're stranded on the island because of the high tides, blocking the river, blocking the bridge to the land. And I think Milo says they have to wait a week to get back to land for the tide to become low again. And he also forbids them from doing any water activities, says it's a slight misprint, and pretty much says, you're not allowed to go there. You're not allowed to go in the ocean and do any of these water activities because if you believe the curse, if you're superstitious because of the shark god, if you're not superstitious, then there's shark-infested waters. So with the gang, Sonny and Cher practically really having nothing better to do, they have no activities to do on this island, and because there's been some weird things happening on the island, they decide to go split up and search the island. just to pass the time and to verify their suspicions and see if they're warranted and if something is actually going on. So Fred, Sonny, and Cher go one way, Daphne and Velma go another way, and then I think Shaggy and Scooby also go a different way. While Fred, Sonny, and Cher are searching the beach area, Freddy and Sonny find dozens of empty, valuable rum bottles belonging to an ancient Spanish king on the beach. Listening to the wind blowing against them, it sounds like the moaning they heard the night before, so that they start to say that that's probably what they heard last night, and they write off the moaning as the glass bottles just being the cause of it. And Fred wonders why these glass bottles would be on the beach in the first place. Why would anyone throw these valuable rum bottles away? They're worth a lot of money. Meanwhile, Scooby and Shaggy find a paddle boat with a glass floor, and this, Shaggy is suspicious about this because he's like, Mr. Meekley said there was no water activities, like there was no paddle boats or anything. Why is there a paddle boat here then? So they decide to take it out in the ocean, and Shaggy and Scooby spot an old shipwreck Spanish galleon, along with the shark god swimming out of it. So the shark god swims up, startling Shaggy, and he ends up crashing the paddle boat on the beach. And if you're curious, Daphne and Velma, I think, were just searching some footprints and saw like a staircase or whatever, something like that. They were just looking where the shark god was the previous night. So there they meet up with the rest of the gang, along with Sonny and Cher, and on the beach, they spot a kelp dredger, which they try to signal. However, the boat vanishes completely into thin air, and the gang don't know how this happened, and now alarm bells are starting to go off. They're wondering what's going on here. So the gang try to hunt down Mr. Meekley, but they find him missing as there's some slimy amphibian-like footprints circling his desk. Splitting up, Shaggy runs into the shark god in the hotel's wine cellar, when Shaggy and Scooby first start in the kitchen, then they get to the basement, and Shaggy and Scooby hear noises, which we know as Sonny and Cher, because Sonny and Cher are also down there as well, but they don't know that, and they think it's the shark god, or they think somebody else is down there. Shaggy wants to go a certain way. Scooby just kind of stands there. I don't know if he wasn't listening or something, but he just kind of sits there, and then Shaggy goes off into the darkness, and then there's a creepy, shot of the shark god moaning and groaning behind Shaggy, and then eventually Shaggy notices it. He thinks it's Scooby at first. A chase then ensues, and Shaggy, Scooby, Sonny, and Cher all manage to escape his man-eating jaws. As Shaggy and Scooby meet up with Sonny, Shaggy reunites with Scooby, then they meet up with Sonny and Cher, and they try to dodge and evade the shark god. And I kind of like the scene because it's fun, it's entertaining, like it's a nice, fun chase scene of Shaggy and Scooby and Sonny and Cher evading the shark god and working as a team. They have great chemistry going on.
Scoob! Shag and Scooby!
Sonny and Cher?
Shark God!
And repeat after me, Geronimo!
Okay, nobody fear. Bono is here. And when we hear that thing coming, everybody put a shoulder to the rack and push. Now, all we have to do is run for our lives!
As you just saw on that scene, on the beach, Fred, Daphne, and Velma also have some worse luck as they go on the rickety set of wooden stairs, and it ends up collapsing into the sea, and the three of them land dead center in the middle of a few circling shark fins. Freddy, though, figures out that these shark fins are fake and are on some sort of underwater device. So they're curious why there would be fake shark fins going around like this and going into that cave. So Fred, Daphne, and Velma grab onto one and go into the cave. And while this is happening, we still have another chase with Shaggy, Scooby, Sonny, and Cher trying to get away from the shark god. And this is also a good scene because, like, they're tripping over rum bottles, and Shaggy very humorously closes the door before the shark god gets in, and it's pretty funny, actually.
Here's another fine mess you've gotten us into, Sonny. Picky.
Watch out! Help! Getting away! Sorry, occupancy by more than 4 persons is unlawful. You'll have to catch the next elevator.
Eventually, everyone converges in an underwater cave where they find a crane aboard the kelp dredger operating on a bucket that is harvesting piles of gold from the sea. The gold is being loaded onto an assembly line and melted into a foundry. Freddy also discovers wet black paint on dozens of metal garbage cans and thinks it's some sort of clue. The shark god, along with a couple of other walking sharks, start to show up. There's 2 shark gods going and more chasing around happens until Freddy makes his way up to the top of the crane. There's even a fun scene where Shaggy, Scooby, Sonny, and Cher are running away from the shark god, and then Shaggy kicks a trash can to the shark god, incapacitating him for a little bit, and then the shark god comes back up and puts the trash can lid back on, and Shaggy is very puzzled by this and is wondering, why is he putting this lid back on the trash can? And like Shaggy, I'd be asking the same question. And Shaggy makes a joke saying, I guess he's just a neat sea monster, which maybe he is. Of course, we find out what his actual villain's plans are at the end of the episode. But it's still a good joke and a good chase scene, and Shaggy ends up evading the shark god, and it's pretty funny.
That stopped him. But why is he putting the lid back on that trash can? Guess he's just a neat sea monster. Wow, he moves pretty fast for a fish out of water.
As Fred gets to the top of the crane, he spots Mr. Meekly operating the crane, so he uses the 2 metal trash can lids, and he smashes them together like cymbals, disrupting Mr. Meekly's senses. And Freddy even says that, I guess, his father or his uncle was a symbolist in the marching band or something, which was a nice little neat fact about Fred. And it was kind of cool seeing Fred, anger Mr. Meekly and disrupt his senses. Matilda rushes in, and it turns out to be an undercover officer named Matt Hidalgo. So Matt Hidalgo arrests Mr. Meekly and his crew of walking sharks and tells the shark men to get out of the water. And back at the hotel, Matt Hidalgo explains that all the sharks were professional scavengers. They were stealing gold from the sunken ship using the kelp dredger bucket, and from there they melted the gold down and forged it into garbage cans, which they smuggled out under the guise of the fast trash removal business. He says the shark costumes were perfect for hiding their scuba gear when they needed to dive down to the wreck. The shark god legend was also helpful in keeping any legit customers away. They also find out that the hotel has been condemned for a long time, and that's why it's so run down. It's never been in business. It's not even open. It's condemned. And the episode ends with the gang beginning to leave, just as the entire hotel slides into the ocean for good, thanks to Cher stopping her feet on the rickety old building, and she gets off in time somehow before it falls down, and Sonny makes a nice quip of Cher bringing the house down or something like that, and it's a good joke. I'm going to give season 1 episode 8 of the new Scooby Doo movies 3 stars out of 5. So yeah, I thought this was a decent episode. This was a nice, decent follow-up to the Sandy Duncan episode. Not quite as good as Sandy Duncan and, Don Knotts' first episode. But It's not the worst episode I've seen. It's pretty average. So I'll start off with the positives of the episode, since I'm really not swayed one way or the other. It's a pretty decent one. It's average to me. Starting with the positives, there's 2 members of the gang that I thought were good. The rest were not that great. So I'll get into the 2 members. First, there's Fred. Now, Fred helped piece together the mystery. He helped find some clues in the episode. You know, he found the phony shark fins, the rum bottles out on the beach with Sonny and Cher. Both him and the rest of the gang found the villain's hideout, their operation, and he found the clue of the painted trash cans. So he found a good amount of clues in this episode. As well, he also helped stop Mr. Meekly. He incapacitated his senses, and he helped, stop Mr. Meekly at the end of the episode, which I thought was cool. The other member of the gang who I thought was great was Shaggy. Shaggy was pretty good in this episode. He also helped find some clues, kind of like Fred. Him and Fred found the most stuff. Like, they were pretty well done in this episode. Shaggy found the wrecked ship, the paddle boat. He, along with Fred, found the villain's hideout. And, if you remember, he helped slow down the shark god. He helped slow down the shark god when he was chasing after them. He found the golden, coins as well that were being melted. So he helped find a lot of clues, but he also helped slow down the shark god. So Fred helped slow down Mr. Meekly and found clues, and Shaggy helped slow down the shark god and found some clues. So Fred and Shaggy were pretty good in this episode. They both did similar roles, but stopped different villains that were working together, as a group. So I felt Fred and Shaggy were really well done in this episode. They did the most amount of stuff in the rest of this episode. They were great. Shaggy also had some great humor as well. Next, we have the guest stars of the episode, Sonny and Cher. I thought Sonny and Cher were good guest stars in this episode. I liked their dynamic together. Sonny and Cher had a great dynamic together as well as the rest of the gang, and they had good chemistry with each other. Because Sonny was he was a very positive person. He was very optimistic and superstitious. He was willing to believe in ghosts. Cher was kind of like this Debbie Downer, very negative, very realistic, and very sassy. So they worked well because they were like opposites attract. They had such great chemistry, and they really bounced off each other well. And I also thought Sonny and Cher had good chemistry with Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby. I thought when they split up with Fred on the beach and found those rum bottles, I thought they played off of Fred well. And when they were with Shaggy and Scooby for about the second half of the episode, being chased by the shark god and also finding some clues along the way, I thought they worked well with Shaggy and Scooby as well, and and they did a great job together as a team. I thought Sonny and Cher worked really well with Shaggy and Scooby, but they also had good chemistry with Fred in the beginning. So they were pretty good. They had good chemistry with each other. They had good chemistry with the gang. They didn't really help, find clues or help solve the mystery, I would say. But I wouldn't say they were completely bad or useless, because they did have good chemistry with the gang, and they worked well with certain members of the gang. So overall, I was happy with how Sonny and Cher were utilized, and I think they were good guest stars. And while not really helping much in the mystery department, finding the clues and such, they did have good chemistry with Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby, and with each other. So I really liked their dynamic with each other, and Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby, and their chemistry with each other, and Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby. Then we have the villain of the episode, the Shark God. How was the Shark God? Well, the Shark God was a pretty good villain, actually. Even though we found out at the end that there was 2 Shark Gods, because there was 2 men that were working with Meekly. For most of the episode, we're led to believe that it's just one Shark God. So, the Shark God I really liked because he had a good backstory. I liked the whole curse backstory of this Shark God would rise from the ocean, from moaning in the wind or something like that. And he would bring his shark men with him and essentially drive humanity back into the water. That's a really neat tale. But I also would say the shark god was a little bit creepy in the episode. I would say he was at his creepiest when he was in the dark behind Shaggy, and Shaggy thought he was with Scooby, and he was grunting and moaning. Every time he did that, that was creepy. But sharks are like, they have, a lot of teeth, they're man-eating. So, and when you think of something like Jaws, that just gets you terrified of sharks as well, because shark attacks are common. But just the idea of like a shark that can walk on land and could essentially bite you by, kill you with its teeth, the shark god was pretty threatening and pretty creepy and scary. He, not the scariest villain in the world, but he's a pretty creepy and threatening villain. So I would say that he was pretty good, not just with his backstory, but he helped, in the creep factor. He was very creepy. Like I said, especially when he was behind Shaggy in the dark. Like, that was the creepiest scene of him. That really showcased some, like, a fear I don't want to be on. Like, I don't want to be in front of a walking shark in the dark. Like, that just alone, that sounds scary. Outside of costume, we have a similar situation with the Captain Cutler episode, where Meekly has two men that are both dressed up as the shark god, but he's the actual villain of the episode. He's the one we see outside of costume. We don't see his shark men, and I assume he's the one that was at the top of the building looking through the telescope, making the demonic grunting, especially with how he was sounding at the end. He was creepy when he was doing all those demonic growls. Like, he was so upset that these kids foil him, and he went from like this confused deaf guy to like this fucking crazy old man that was making grunting demonic noises. So, even though we never meet Meekly's men outside of costume, we don't actually, they're just in scuba gear when they're unmasked, and we never actually see their faces. Meekly kind of fulfills that role of the outside of costume role. So even though, because both him and his men are essentially working on the same operation, it's just Meekly's the one, he's the head, but he's not the one in costume. His men are. So even though we never meet his men outside of costume, we do meet Meekly, and he tells the curse of the shark god, and he kind of warns the gang away from the water and tries everything in the power to persuade the gang not to investigate or not to go in the water, and to just believe that there's a shark god in the island. So he tells the legend of it, and he still is pretty creepy a little bit, even when we do find, when we do find out that he is the villain, even though he's not in costume. So yeah, I think Meekly fulfilled that role well. I think Mr. Meekly fulfilled the outside of costume role well. And like I said, even though we didn't meet his men outside of costume, I can accept it because Meekly fulfilled that role. He told the legend of the shark god. He built up the legend of the shark god and did everything in his power to make sure the gang wouldn't figure out his operation. And he was also a bit suspicious throughout the episode with him trying to tell the gang that they can't do this and they can't do that. Then we have the clues of the episode, and the clues were pretty good in this episode. You had the shipwreck at the bottom of the sea that Shaggy and Scooby found where the shark god was coming out of. You have the fake shark fins that Fred finds that leads to the cave. And you also find the painted garbage cans. And these all help point towards what the villains are up to and what their scheme is. So these clues do a good job of, telling you what their scheme is, what they're up to. So the clues fulfilled their purpose and role well. Even though they didn't point towards a suspect, they did help point towards the motive of the villain, which is just as good. Finally, I thought there were a good number of suspects in the episode. Yeah, there were only two, but considering that for most of the episode, we're led to believe there's just, even though the tale tells of his shark god leading his shark men into driving humanity back into the water, we're led to believe that we're just encountering the one shark god. And there's two people we meet. We meet Matilda the maid, and we meet Mr. Meekly, who's the hotel manager. So it's a 50-50 shot But because there's one villain, we don't suspect that, there's multiple until the end. So it works because they're both equally suspicious. Mantilla is definitely more the red herring type, but Mr. Meekly is just as suspicious. So I feel like they did a good job throwing suspicion on both of them, and we got a good number of suspects. They at least fulfilled the bare minimum. Sure, they could have loaded more suspects, but since it's one villain, at least if you have 2 suspects, I'll take it. That's all I need. That's all I got for positives, though, so I think it's about time we get on to the negatives of the episode. What hurts this episode overall? Well, we'll start off with the members of the gang that I didn't talk about, which was Daphne, Velma, and Scooby. Daphne, Velma, and Scooby were very lacking and underutilized in this episode. I did not like how they were utilized. Daphne, Velma just, they saw the shark god, they saw the footprints. Scooby was cowardly, but he wasn't funny. He didn't really have any moments to shine. He wasn't humorous. He just kind of was there, and I was a little bit disappointed in how Daphne, Velma, and Scooby were utilized. They weren't giving any moments to shine, whether that be humor, whether that be finding clues. There's a lot of ways to help the gang members shine. I don't feel like Daphne and Velma got any moments to shine. They were very lacking, kind of like background characters. I feel like Fred and Shaggy did the most work, and the rest of the gang kind of were just tagging along for the ride. So I was a little bit disappointed with Daphne, Velma, and Scooby's utilization in this episode, and I think they could have done a better job with that. And it sucks because, Scooby's my second favorite character, so to not see the titular character be that strong, I'm a little bit disappointed. That could easily hurt the episode overall as well. The fact that the titular mascot, the titular character of the gang, isn't on the isn't at where he should be. He's not utilized well as he should be. But there's a lot of good things going for the episode, so it's okay. I still wish they would have utilized Scooby, Daphne, and Velma better, but it is what it is. Then we have the villain's motive of the episode. I found the villain's motive to be bland and boring, and it's kind of ironic considering this is just after I did my re-review of Hassel and the Castle. This motive is very similar to Hassel and the Castle. It's a very simple money motive. We once again have them trying to steal treasure. This time we do actually see the treasure. They try to steal treasure filled with gold coins from a Spanish, ship that was wrecked at the bottom of the sea. And yeah, they were going to put it in like trash cans, melted into trash cans and stuff like that. But it's just a simple money motive in my mind. Like they're just stealing money and just, from a ship. It's just basically a simple money motive. I don't know. I don't really see much creativity with this scheme. They do a little bit with the trash can stuff, but I feel like overall, it's just, at the end of the day, it's just a simple money motive. They're just scavengers stealing money from the bottom of the ocean, treasure from the bottom of the ocean. And it's not really that inventive. I know it may be the first time I think we've had that in Scooby Doo. But even if that is the case, it's not really inventive. Like I say, treasure can be a good motive if you do more with it. I'd rather treasure have like an item in it so that you can sell it, or at least put a lot of layers to your money scheme or treasure scheme to make it more interesting. I don't feel like they did a lot with it, and I just kind of feel like it was very run-of-the-mill, very bland, very boring. Just not a good motive in my mind. Next, I found the mystery of the episode to be pretty non-existent, if I'm being honest. The mystery, I could not tell you what the mystery of this episode was, because there really was none. The gang, Sonny and Cher, basically just explored the island because they had no activities to do, and because they wanted to quell their suspicions about the weird things that were happening the night before. So it just was like, there was weird stuff going on, but they kind of just did it because they had nothing better to do. And there was no real mystery or drive. You could argue maybe Mr. Meekly's disappearance could be considered a mystery. or like the Legend of the Shark God, but I don't really buy it. I'm not really seeing a mystery here. I just don't feel like the gang are really solving a mystery. I think they're bored. There's weird things happening on the island. They don't have anything better to do. They're just exploring just to quell their suspicions, and they happen to stumble upon a big operation and scheme that is going on, and explains why there was weird stuff happening. So they really just kind of stumbled into a little bit of an adventure just because it was there. Like, there wasn't really much of a mystery, so yeah, I just didn't really see any mystery in this episode. I think the gang just explored the island because they were bored, they had nothing better to do, and them and Sonny and Cher just happened upon a money scheme, operation going on. And finally, I found the atmosphere and setting of the episode to be pretty dull and non-existent. So, the atmosphere was very devoid of any tension or suspense, because I really didn't feel like the gang was really in any sort of danger. Yes, there was the shark god, and sharks can be threatening, especially with their teeth. But the shark god didn't really do much to kind of reiterate that threat. I say the most it tried to do that was when it was creeping up on Shaggy in the dark. It doesn't mean he was bad. It's just like he didn't really help contribute to the atmosphere. And there just wasn't anything that was going on that really lent itself to make it feel like that the gang were in any sort of danger. There was no tension or suspense on where the gang was going to go. They just kind of were fucking around and just were like, well, we have nothing better to do, so let's just explore this island because we can't get off of it. We have no activities to do, so let's just see let's see if the weird things that are happening on this island are our imagination, or if there's actually some validation to what we saw. And sure enough, there was. But the villain doesn't really help contribute to the atmosphere, and there's nothing natural that happens that helps contribute to the atmosphere. So I felt overall there really wasn't any atmosphere. There was no tension or suspense going throughout the island. They just kind of explored and did their own thing. It was non-existent. Now the setting might have been a little bit decent because it was like a hotel on an island, which is, I guess, a unique and interesting idea and a bit different. I'm going to be honest though, it doesn't really stand out in any way. Like, it's just kind of very dull and boring. It just feels like a normal place that's run down, and there's really nothing there, that makes it stand out. It's just a standard rundown hotel, and yeah, it's on an island, and it's kind of cool, but nothing inside the hotel is really interesting. You just had a wine cellar, the main lobby, and some rooms upstairs. There was no any cool set pieces in the set in the hotel or anything that really made it stand out. It just kind of was very, normal looking and just I mean, is it different? A little bit. I mean, it's on a hotel on an island. Does it make it good? Not really, because not only is there no atmosphere, but there's no kind of cool set pieces to make it interesting. And it's just kind of like a dull, abandoned setting that, quite frankly, it could be on land, and it could be just a normal abandoned hotel, and it wouldn't matter. It just wasn't that great. It just was very normal looking. It felt like a normal looking rundown building. And while it was on an island, which was kind of decent and a little bit different, it didn't do enough to really save it. There was no cool set pieces in the hotel. Overall, guys, I would still recommend this episode to fans and newcomers of the show. It's a decent episode. Is it perfect? No. As I've outlined, there are plenty of problems with the episode. But I think it's a good companion piece to the Scooby Doo and Guess Who episode that features Cher down the line, which I will talk about in the future. And I think it's just a decent episode in the new Scooby Doo movies overall. And it's not the best example in the new Scooby Doo movies. It's not the best episode. It's pretty average. But it's not the worst thing I've watched. I've watched worse episodes of the new Scooby Doo movies than this one. So, I mean, it's alright. It's decent. I think it has enough positives to where you could still enjoy it and watch it, especially if you're a fan of Sonny and Cher. You might enjoy this one. Sonny and Cher are pretty good guest stars, so yeah. But it's by no means perfect. So decent episode, could have been better, but it is what it is. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please give it a like if you did. Comment down below your thoughts on the episode. Do you like this episode? You know, do you think it's a really good episode? You know, do you see something that I'm not seeing? Do you hate this episode? I'd be interested in that as well. Like, is this worse than what I'm making it out to be? Like, are there more problems with it that you guys see that I don't? Or are you like me, where you're somewhere in the middle, where you just think it's decent, it's okay, but it's not good or it's not bad, it's nothing special. It's decent enough, but it's not the best episode of the new Scooby Doo movies. I'm curious for your thoughts, so let me know. And subscribe for more Scooby Doo content like this, or if you're just interested in any of my other content, I will, of course, have plenty more Scooby Doo reviews on the way as part of my 2024 summer special, as well as Scooby Month. So plenty more Scooby Doo reviews on the way. That will not be stopping anytime soon. And I'm a diehard Scooby Doo fan, and I have a lot of Scooby content on the way. So you don't have to worry about there being a lack of Scooby content. I'm always going to have new Scooby content on the way. You can also follow me on Facebook, where I have discussions about things we talk about on both my channels, and Twitch, where I hope to live stream in the future. In my next video, I will continue my re-reviews of the Scooby Doo Where Are You series, with my re-review of Season 1, Episode 4, Scooby Doo Where Are You? Mind Your Own Business, which was the Minor 49er episode. I'm going to go back to that and re-review that, and give my updated thoughts on that. So if you're interested in my updated thoughts on the Minor 49er episode, then look forward to that. But of course, after that, we will continue my reviews of the new Scooby Doo movies with Season 1, Episode 9 of the new Scooby Doo movies, titled The Spooky Fog of Juneberry, guest starring Don Knotts. Again. Yes, you did not mishear me. Don Knotts is coming back a second time. And he's going to be the first guest star that will that'll be reoccurring and come back a second time, but he will not be the last. So don't be surprised if you see other guest stars reoccurring. But yeah, Don Knotts nailed it the first time around. He knocked it out of the park the first time around. I've heard good things about the Spooky Fog of Juneberry. I think I even enjoyed it the first time I watched it. So I'm having high hopes that Don Knotts will be able to deliver me another great episode. He nailed it the first time. Can he do it the second time? Well, you'll just have to find out in my next review after my re-review of Mind Your Own Business. So join me for that in a week or two after this review, after the Season 1 Episode 4 review. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, peace out.
Scooby, Scooby Doo, looking for you. Scooby, Scooby Doo, where are you? All the stars are here, waiting for you. Couldn't have a show without you. Scooby, Scooby Doo, Scooby, Scooby Doo.